Hey guys, so today's video is going to be a little bit heavier than most of my videos. I like to do comedy videos, but because of what's going on, I thought it would kind of be a good thing to talk about some of the heavier stuff in this world. And also, it is the beginning of Pride Month, so I thought talking about the history of Pride Month and the history of the Stonewall Riots would be kind of fitting. Unfortunately, this is the world we live in, so we gotta talk about it at some point. I also found it fitting because Pride Month and the Black Lives Matter movement kind of collided this year, and I think that it's important to talk about both, and even though they're not directly correlated, I think talking about the importance of both of these riots and how they're going to affect our lives moving forward is really important to talk about. So that is what we're doing today. Hopefully you guys have a takeaway from this, whether it's learning something new or pushing this video forward to somebody that does need to learn a little bit about these riots. I think it's important to honor and remember the trans women of color behind the first Pride, which was a riot. Before I talk about the actual riots, I wanted to bring some awareness of what it was like to live during this time and be a part of the LGBT community. I feel like when I hear a lot of these videos, no one really talks about what it was actually like living during that time and what was going on. So after World War II, people of the LGBT community were actually considered a security risk, and the reason was because they said LGBT people lacked emotional stability that normal people had. So because of that, the US had a list of people they considered homosexuals. The US Post Office kept track of addresses that they wouldn't bring mail to because they either suspected they were homosexual or they knew they were. Bars that catered to the LGBT community were being shut down, and their customers were being arrested and also exposed in the newspaper. Cities performed sweeps, which were basically finding any gay people anywhere in the neighborhood and just arresting them, and you were not allowed to wear clothing of the opposite gender, which, what is that? In 1952, being homosexual was actually considered a disorder, and in 1956, a psychologist named Evelyn Hooker performed a study, and it showed that there was no difference in happiness between someone who was homosexual and not homosexual. And although this was a very important study for the LGBT community, the BDSM kept homosexuality as a disorder until 1974. So living during this time was obviously a very scary and sad place for the LGBT community, and it was probably worse than you can even imagine. So moving on to 1969, which is when the riots happened. During this time, raids of bars that had gay clientele were done pretty often, but they were known because the managers would, give them payoffs, and that way they know when raids would happen, so they were just kind of aware. For this particular raid that happened, there were no warnings. And the reason that they suspect this raid happened with no warning was because they suspected that the police wanted to shut down this bar and didn't want to give them warning because the mafia actually had a buy-in at this bar. They spent $3,500 to turn the restaurant bar that was already in existence to turn it into a gay bar. The mafia owners of this bar were able to blackmail wealthier customers because they had this information on them, and they were able to get a lot more money than what they were actually making in sales at the bar. This specific night of the Stonewall Riots, 2 undercover policemen went in to get, visual evidence of what was going on inside the bar. Alcohol was also illegal in this bar because they didn't have the right licenses. During these raids, they would line everybody up and check their identification, check that however they were dressed was actually their gender. They would bring them into the bathroom and check their no swear and see if they were actually the gender that they were dressed as, which is insane, but that's what would happen. During this raid, it went just like that. They lined everybody up, they turned on the lights, and they asked for identification, and people decided that they weren't going to show their identification, that they weren't going to show them their genitalia. And that is how the riots broke out. People decided that they weren't gonna put up with it anymore, and that's when the first brick was thrown. That is just a saying that is known, but they're not actually sure what was thrown first, what brick was thrown. There's also quotes like the shot glass that was heard around the world. No one knows what was first that started and broke out this riot. After these riots, things didn't just change right away. There were still raids to bars. Things didn't just get easy after that. It took about 2 years until things were just slightly better. The Stonewall Riots lasted about 3 days. People were arrested. During those 3 days, no one was killed or severely injured. I think a few cops got a little bit injured or got sprained wrists or something like that. The riots happened on June 28th, 1969, and that is why we celebrate Pride in June and throughout the whole month. Okay, so next I wanted to talk about 6 months after the Stonewall Riots. Like I said, right after the Stonewall Riots, things didn't just get happy and everyone could be gay. Bars were still being raided, people were still going to jail, and actually the Stonewall Inn only lasted a few weeks after the riots, and then they ended up closing, and by October 1969, the building was up for rent. And finally, after 2 years from the riots, there were gay rights groups in every major city in the US, as well as Canada, Australia, and Western Europe. Now, fast forwarding all the way till June 23rd, 2015, the New York City Landmark Preservation Commission approved the Stonewall Inn as a city landmark. I read that Bill Clinton and I read that Obama declared that June was Pride Month. So I'm not sure which one, but I will leave some more links down below where you can get more information and you can see where I did my research. I'm also going to leave down links where you can support the Black Lives Matter movement and Pride. So I will leave all those links down below as well. I did want to say during times like these, it is important for you to get involved, and there are many, many different ways that you can get involved. Posting on social media isn't and shouldn't be the only way that you show support. I think it's really important to focus on what you can do, and that way you are showing others what they can do instead of forcefully trying to push something on somebody else. So show what you can do, educate other people, bring awareness to the world, show acceptance and love for people. This is a hard time for a lot of people, and everyone is dealing with it in different ways, especially if you are Black or if you are LGBT or if you're both, which can be very difficult and very hard during this time. I think the best thing is to practice love and acceptance to everyone. It rubs off. So if you show your love and acceptance for people, people are going to see that and hopefully learn from you. I thought it would be nice to also share where the pride flag came from. The flag was designed by Gilbert Baker, who was an American artist and was a gay rights activist. He was commissioned to do this by Harvey Milk, who was a San Francisco city supervisor and the first openly gay elected official in California. This was in 1978. Unfortunately, Milk was assassinated later that year. According to Baker's website, there are meanings behind each color, so I'll just read those off for you. The red one is for life, orange is for healing, yellow is for sunlight, green was for nature, blue for harmony, and violet was for spirit. I'm also going to post some links down below where you can go to virtual Pride. This month is going to be, obviously, there's no Pride parade going on, but there are going to be virtual Prides that you can go to, so I will link those all down below. So now more than ever, I wanted to remind you that Pride didn't start as a party or a celebration, it started as a riot. Another little fact I wanted to give you guys is that the Pride name actually came from Brenda Howard, who was a bisexual New York activist and was nicknamed the Mother of Pride. She was the first one to organize the first Pride parade that commemorated the 1-year anniversary of the Stonewall Riots. Now, with all that information, I did want to leave you with one last thing, and I wanted to say that to make changes, you need to get to somebody emotionally, and I think the best way to do that is to share your stories, share what you go through. If you don't have a story, but you still support somebody, share their stories, and that is how we get through to people that don't understand. The best way to understand somebody is through stories and something that touches them emotionally. Create awareness around these injustices by sharing stories. Last but not least, remember to vote when you can vote, because nothing is going to change with the wrong people in office. And that's kind of it. I hope you guys liked this video. I hope it was helpful to learn the history. Be sure to share this video, give this video a thumbs up, and share your stories down in the comment section. I would love to read through them, and I'll see you guys in this video right here. Bye.